Story 1. The Name on the Wall. There is a village in the mountains of Gangwon where the old houses still have names written on their walls. Not the names of the families who live there. Not the names of the builders. The names of the people who died inside. The villagers say it is to honor them, to remember them. But the older ones, when pressed, will say something different. It is so they know where they are, so they do not wander. Ji-hoon moved into one of these houses on a Tuesday in March. He was 31 years old, recently divorced, looking for somewhere cheap and quiet to disappear into for a while. The house was both. The landlord had been vague about the history. Ji-hoon had not asked. He noticed the name on the wall on his third night. It was written in old script near the floor of the main room, in ink that had faded to the color of dried blood. He could not read the characters clearly. He took a photograph and forgot about it. He began hearing the scratching on the fourth night, soft, from the wall where the name was written. Not the sound of an animal, not the sound of pipes, the sound of something writing, slowly, deliberately. He turned on the light. The scratching stopped. He went back to sleep. In the morning, he went to look at the wall. There was a new name written beside the old one. His name, in his own handwriting. He had not written it. He knew he had not written it. His hands were clean. There was no ink anywhere in the house. He called the landlord. The landlord was quiet for a long time. Then he said very carefully, "How long have you been hearing the scratching?" "Since the fourth night," Ji-hoon said. The landlord was quiet again. "You should have left on the third," he said. Ji-hoon left that afternoon. He did not go back for his things. He did not need to know what happened to people whose names appeared on walls they had not written on. He had a feeling the house would have been happy to show him. Some knowledge is only useful if you survive learning it. Ji-hoon survived. He considers that enough. Story 2. The Woman at the Crossroads. Every driver in the province knew about the crossroads at the edge of Namwon. Not because of the traffic. Not because of the lights. Because of the woman. She appeared on rainy nights, standing at the far corner, dressed in white, facing away from the road. She was always there when you looked. She was never there when you looked again. Most drivers had seen her once. Some had seen her twice. Nobody who had stopped to help her had ever explained what happened next. Haram was driving home from a late shift when she saw her for the first time. It was raining hard. The crossroads was empty, except for the figure at the corner. White dress soaked through, standing completely still, with her back to the road. Haram slowed down. She told herself it was just a person, just a woman who needed help. She pulled over and rolled down her window. The figure did not move. Haram got out of the car. The rain was loud on the road. She walked toward the corner, calling out, asking if the woman was all right. The figure turned slowly. Haram stopped. The woman's face was not wrong exactly. It was simply too still. The way a face is when the thing behind it has forgotten how faces work. She smiled at Haram. "Where are you going?" she asked. Her voice came from the wrong direction, from behind Haram, not from the figure in front of her. Haram ran. She got back in her car. She drove without stopping until she reached the city. She sat in the parking garage for an hour with the doors locked and the engine running. When she finally drove home, she took a different road. She has taken a different road ever since. She does not know what the woman at the crossroads was looking for. She does not want to know. But sometimes, on rainy nights, when she is stopped at a red light, she catches herself checking the corners, just in case. Story 3. The Door That Opened Inward. The apartment building on Hwanyang Street was built in 1973. It had 42 units. 41 of them had doors that opened outward into the hallway, the way all apartment doors do. Unit 309 had a door that opened inward. Nobody remembered why. The building manager had worked there for 20 years and did not know. The original blueprints showed an outward opening door. At some point between construction and occupancy, It had changed. The building manager did not think about it much. The tenants of Unit 309 thought about it constantly. Not at first. At first, it seemed like a small quirk, an inconvenience at most, something to mention to friends as a mildly interesting detail about the apartment. But Unit 309 had a higher turnover rate than any other unit in the building. Tenants left after 6 months, after 3 months, after 2 weeks. They always gave different reasons. Work, family, finances. Reasonable reasons. None of them said the real reason. Soyeon moved into Unit 309 in October. She noticed the door immediately, but did not think much of it. She began thinking about it on the second week. It was the feeling it gave her. Not the door itself, but the act of coming home, of putting her key in the lock and pushing inward instead of pulling outward. The feeling that she was being let in, that something on the other side was choosing to allow it. She told herself this was irrational. She moved her furniture around. She put a lamp near the door. She bought a new doormat. She made the entrance as normal and cheerful as possible. The feeling did not go away. On the 6th week, she woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of the door not opening. The sound before opening. The sound of a handle being turned from the inside. She lay completely still. The handle turned. The door opened inward, toward her, the way it always did. The hallway on the other side was empty and lit and completely normal. Nothing came in. Nothing had to. Soyeon moved out the following weekend. She did not tell the building manager why. Unit 309 was re-rented 3 weeks later. The new tenant thought the inward opening door was a charming quirk. They have not yet changed their mind. But it is only the second week. Story 4. The Last Passenger. Bus 47 ran from the Eastern District to the city center. Last departure at 11:45 p.m. The driver, a man named Chang Soo, who had worked the route for 8 years, knew every stop, every regular passenger, every strange thing that had ever happened on the late run. Strange things happened on the late run. Not every night, not even most nights, but enough. The rule among the late-night drivers was simple. If someone gets on after the last stop and you did not see them board, do not look in the mirror. Chang Soo had followed this rule for 8 years. On a Wednesday in November, he forgot. It was near the end of the route. The bus was empty. It had been empty since the second to last stop. Rain on the windows, the heater running. The particular loneliness of a late bus with no passengers. He heard the creak of a seat. Behind him, he had not stopped. The door had not opened. He had not seen anyone board. He thought about the rule. He looked in the mirror. A woman was sitting in the back row. She was looking out the window. She was dressed for weather 20 years ago. The cut of the coat, the style of the hair. She turned and looked at him in the mirror. She had been waiting for him to look. She smiled. He looked away immediately. He kept driving. He did not stop until the terminus. He opened the doors and kept his eyes forward and did not move until he heard, or thought he heard, the sound of someone stepping off. He looked in the mirror. The bus was empty. He sat there for a long time. When he filed his report that night, he wrote nothing unusual to report in the incident column. There was no column for what he had seen. He retired the following spring. He takes taxis now. He always sits in the front. Story 5. The Child Who Waited. The playground behind the elementary school in Yosu was built in 1988. It had a slide, 2 sets of swings, a climbing frame, and a sand pit. The sand pit was filled in after the 3rd incident. Nobody talked about what the incidents were. The school administration had been very clear about that. The parents had signed documents. The teachers had been given instructions. The official position was that the sand pit had been filled in for safety reasons, due to structural concerns with the underlying foundation. This was not true, but it was easier than the truth. The truth was that 3 children, on 3 separate occasions, had reported playing with another child in the sand pit, a child none of the teachers had ever seen. A child who wore a uniform that had not been used since 1991. A child who, when asked their name, gave a name that appeared on a memorial plaque inside the school's main entrance. The plaque had been installed in 1992. It listed the names of students who had died while enrolled. The name the child gave was the last one on the list. After the third incident, the sand pit was filled in. The school planted flowers over it, bright ones, the kind that children like. The sighting stopped. But sometimes when the school is empty and the light is right, teachers crossing the playground will stop and look at the flower bed, and then they will walk faster, and they will not be able to explain why. Story 6. The man who came home every night. Minji's husband died on a Thursday. He had been crossing the street outside their apartment building, coming home from the convenience store, when a car that did not stop. He died before the ambulance arrived. He had been carrying milk and a chocolate bar, the kind she liked. The chocolate bar was still in his coat pocket at the hospital. She brought it home. She put it on the kitchen table. She did not eat it. On Friday night, she heard the front door, the sound it always made when he came home. The particular sequence of sounds she had heard every evening for 7 years. Key and lock, handle, the small resistance of the door, his footsteps in the entrance. She sat in the living room and did not move. The sounds continued. His footsteps in the entrance, stopping to take off his shoes, the way he always did. Then nothing. She sat there for a long time. In the morning, his shoes were at the entrance. The shoes she had brought home from the hospital. She had left them in the bedroom closet. They were at the entrance, placed neatly, the way he always placed them. On Saturday night, the sounds came again. And Sunday. Her sister told her to stay somewhere else. Her mother told her the apartment was making her imagine things. Her friends told her she needed to sleep, to eat, to talk to someone. She listened to all of them. She stayed, because here is a thing nobody could understand. The things she could not explain to her sister or her mother or her friends. The sounds were not frightening. They were his sounds, exactly his sounds. The key, the handle, the door, the footsteps, the pause where he took off his shoes. Every night, coming home, she did not know what it meant. She did not know if it was something that would eventually stop or something that would go on. She only knew that every night, at the same time, the door sounded like him. And she was not ready for that to stop. So she stayed, and every night she listened, and she left his side of the bed turned down. Just in case. The end.